Welcome to Independence Nation on the Light of Life Network. In light of President's Day, we take a closer look at one of our most prominent presidents of our nation, Abraham Lincoln, to find out who his true enemies really were and how he stopped their plot to gain total control. As you can see depicted here, this is the statue of Abraham Lincoln here, and we take a look at today Lincoln's true enemies. So let's take a look here and delve into the information. On April 14th, 1865, just a few weeks after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into law, Abraham Lincoln was shot on Good Friday at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Now, he was our 16th president and was assassinated by a man called John Wilkes Booth. People question whether John Wilkes Booth, and I may refer to him during the course of this as JWB also, but John Wilkes Booth, people question whether he acted alone. And that's something that people are really taking a closer look at now in our day. Now, we must first let you know that John Wilkes Booth didn't act entirely alone due to the fact that the overall plot was to kill the president, which was Lincoln, the vice president, Andrew Jackson, and the Secretary of State, which was William H. Seward. So we know that he wasn't planning to act entirely alone. He didn't act entirely alone in the ordeal. But obviously, the only one who was fatally wounded was our president, Abraham Lincoln. So John Wilkes Booth conspired with fellow Confederate sympathizers, Lewis Powell and David Harrell. And as I said, each one was to kill one of those in charge, president, vice president, secretary of state. Now, we must ask the question, did John Wilkes Booth have the power to make this happen on his own? Because when we take a look at the information, it seems to me that John Wilkes Booth did not have the power to make things happen on his own. As you can see here, this is a picture of John Wilkes Booth, and it is my personal opinion that he did not have the power to make these things happen on his own. So let's take a look at who was John Wilkes Booth. Now, John Wilkes Booth was a stage actor, and he was not just a stage actor, but one who was vehemently, in his denunciation of Lincoln, he was vehement about and strongly opposed the abolition of slavery in the United States. Of course, he was more related to the South. He wanted slavery to continue, as many of those Southerners who basically lived by that slavery, that free labor. But it was also said that John Wilkes Booth was a Confederate spy who had ties to the Montreal Confederate sympathizers, or what was known as the Confederate Secret Service. Now, we understand that he did have some relationship with those in the Montreal Confederacy, the Confederate Secret Service, because of his relationship with this man here, and his name is John Surratt, or was, I should say. But he had a relationship with John Surratt, and we know that John Surratt used to bring John Wilkes Booth large amounts of money, and John Wilkes Booth would deposit that money into his bank account. So we understand that there is something going on, that he's in relationship with John Surratt, and John Surratt is of the Confederate Secret Service. Also, it's good to note that John Wilkes Booth also corresponded to these people in a sort of decryption. And I believe it's called Vigenère decryption. The same decryption information that the Confederate Secret Service used. So let's go ahead and move forward. Who was John Surratt then? John Surratt was a courier and a Confederate Secret Service spy. It is said that he befriended and later recruited John Wilkes Booth into the Confederate Secret Service. And so now you have this tied to this relationship, and you see that there is definitely something going on as he's bringing money to John Wilkes Booth to deposit into his account large amounts of money, especially large for that time. But most importantly, John Surratt had ties not only to the Confederate Secret Service, but also to a secret society called the KGC, or what later became known as the Knights of the Golden Circle. Here is a flyer shown depicted in the picture of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, and as you can see here, they have many symbols on the flyer. This symbol here is not only in relationship to the KGC, but also into Freemasonry. Also over here to the left of the screen, you'll see it says from 1834 to 1861. So this was the Knights of the Golden Circle flyer here, all often used, as many say, for recruitment, as well as to show that their organization is still strong. So who was the KGC then? So we have this tie going on between John Wilkes Booth, John Surratt, the Confederate Secret Service, and now the KGC, or the Knights of the Golden Circle. So who was the Knights of the Golden Circle? Now, the Knights of the Golden Circle was a secret society associated with the Confederate Secret Service. The KGC had over 500,000 members and was said to be more powerful than the CIA and Secret Service combined. Now, that's pretty powerful, and with dues off those members, you can see where they gained lots of power, having over 500,000 members. Now, the KGC was known for power and influence during the Civil War, and we're going to get to their power during the Civil War and what their hopes were. But they had initiation rituals that were similar to the Freemasons, as depicted in the picture I alluded to just a few minutes ago. They had the symbols. We're going to see why that they had such a relationship with the Freemasons, and why their symbols were the same. We'll find out that they had this sacred geometry the same as the Freemasons. So the KGC wasn't just similar to the Masonic Cabal, but a prominent person in the Masonic secret society was the very leader of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle. So let's take a look at some of the prominent members of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle. The first one we'll start with here is a man by the name of Nathan B. Forrest. Now, it's important to point out that Nathan B. Forrest wasn't just a prominent member of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, but was also a founding member of the Ku Klux Klan. So now you have the secret society linked. You have this link between the Confederate Secret Service, the KGC, and now even what later would become the Ku Klux Klan under Nathan B. Forrest. So let's take a look at another prominent member of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, one by the name of John Calhoun. Now, John Calhoun was not just a leading American politician and political theorist, but he was known for his intense and original defense of slavery. Once again, those who were in defense of slavery, these Southern sympathizers, they needed slavery, this free labor, in order to gain money and gain control. Now, let's take a look at another prominent member of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, one by the name of Edwin M. Stanton. And the thing to point out here is that these people, these who are associated with the Freemasons, associated with Confederate Secret Service, associated with the Knights of the Golden Circle, often infiltrated different organizations and different groups, as you will see here. Edwin M. Stanton, and the thing about Edwin Stanton is that he is an American lawyer and politician who served as Secretary of War under the Lincoln administration during most of the American Civil War. So he himself is KGC, and he's associated with the Lincoln administration. So he knows all of the whereabouts of the president, what he does, what he doesn't do, and how to get close to him, as close as possible to kill him. As a matter of fact, during the time that the president was getting ready to go to the Ford's Theater, his bodyguard, his guard from the Union Army, was told basically to stand down, that he would not be needed that night, and that he was assigned to another post, something else that was said to be more important at that time. But Edwin Stanton was implicated in the second and fatal attempt of assassination on President Lincoln. Now, it's important to say here that the KGC had made a first attempt. Obviously, it didn't go well. They weren't able to assassinate Lincoln. But here in this second attempt, as they have an inside man, Edwin Stanton, they were able to know his whereabouts and use John Wilkes Booth to assassinate the president. So let's take a look at another prominent member of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle. And his name was Jesse James. And I know you may be thinking to yourself, Jesse James, because in history we were taught that Jesse James was just some type of outlaw, some type of rebel cowboy. But the fact of the matter is that Jesse James was used by the KGC, and he was a prominent member. And you'll see that he's linked to other things as well, the Quantrill's Raiders and the Northwest Conspiracy. But let's take a look at Jesse James here. He was an American outlaw who robbed banks and trains for gold. Now, this is important because you might be asking yourself, what does that have to do with the KGC? Well, he was a field commander for the KGC to do exactly that, to accumulate money. So the Knights of the Golden Circle initiated Jesse James, and his job was to go out and rob banks and trains for money for gold, because they wanted to be able to resurrect the Confederacy, the Confederate Army, in future instances, should they fall apart, should they go down, as we know that they did lose to Union soldiers. But yes, Jesse James was used as a field commander to do just that. So we come to the most prominent member of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, and his name was Albert Pike. Now, if you take a look at the picture here, you'll see that Albert Pike was a 33rd degree Freemason, as depicted in the picture here. You'll see this ornament around his neck, and the 33 with the triangle, the 33 inside the triangle. So, but it's important to point out that this Albert Pike was a pretty influential person, and not just influential as a Freemason. Yes, he was an influential member of the Freemasons, but he was also the very leader of the KGC, as I previously stated. So he was the very link between the two, and that was the reason why the rituals were similar, and the reason why the same people infiltrated different groups. But it was also said that Albert Pike was a genius, and he's the only Confederate general to have a monument in the North, and particularly in Washington, D.C. Now, we come to Quantrill's Raiders. And this is where we get further information on Jesse James. So the Quantrill's Raiders was a loosely organized force of pro-Confederate partisan rangers, bushwhackers what they were sometimes called, who fought in the American Civil War under the leadership of William Clark Quantrill. Now this is important because Jesse James was a documented member of Quantrill's Raiders, which proves he wasn't just an outlaw. As I said, that also implicates him in the Northwest Conspiracy as well, and I'll let you look that up on your own. But getting back to John Wilkes Booth here. So John Wilkes Booth then, as we have taken a look at the information, it's safe to say that John Wilkes Booth was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle, which in their second attempt to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, used him to fatally wound the Union president. They were hoping this would buy them enough time. They were hoping not just to wound the president, Abraham Lincoln, but the vice president, as I said, and the Secretary of State, and this would help them gain back the power to win as Confederate soldiers. Now, their hopes were to kill the president, vice president, and the Secretary of State in an effort to make sure the South remained a powerhouse among the United States. Now, this was where the KGC comes in, because this is specifically their plan to keep the South as a powerhouse. And why? We're going to take a look at why here. Because the original objective of the KGC was to annex a golden circle of territories in Mexico. Now, these territories would be divided into 25 slave states: Central America, Northern South America, and Cuba, and the rest of the Caribbean, for inclusion in the United States as slave states. So what they were hoping to do is completely take over. In essence, the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, wanted to make their own country and to basically bring about a Confederate manifest destiny. And as I said, Lincoln was successfully able to stop them in their endeavor to do so. So let's take a look at John Wilkes Booth's fate. It is said that 2 weeks after the assassination, John Wilkes Booth, JWB, was found in a tobacco barn. It is said that he was said to be fatally wounded in the throat by a Union soldier. It is said that he was fatally wounded and therefore he later died. But there are many of those who believe that that's not true. Now, it is often said among the story that John Wilkes Booth and a fellow traveler were trying to escape the North, and they were in a boat. They were rowing, they had a compass, but that they rowed the wrong way and they didn't make it into the South. But there are those who believe that they did make it into the South, and the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, gave them safe passage further into the South where they escaped, and that John Wilkes Booth was replaced with a patsy, and that patsy is the one who was fatally wounded in the throat by the Union soldier. But there are those who say that this person who was wounded in the throat was John Wilkes Booth. Nevertheless, in 1922, in the paper, it's said that John Wilkes Booth had escaped, and that he escaped to Brownwood, Texas, where he lived in 1871 for a full year. Now, did he escape? Did he live? Did he die? Did he act alone in the assassination of Lincoln? Well, I'll let you decide that. But the important thing is here that Abraham Lincoln was successfully able to stop the KGC from expanding their territory into South America, Cuba, and the Caribbean, to basically start their own country, to expand into further slave states, which would have given them complete and total control. I'm Keith Pitts for Independence Nation. I'll see you next time.